This is Weekend Connection on the Bible Broadcasting Network. Everyone knows that proper nutrition and exercise can lead to a healthier body, but how often do we think about improving our brain health? Scientists estimate we lose 85,000 brain cells each day, that is 1 per second, and over 31 million brain cells each year. The problems with mild memory concerns are mainly due to our aging society. Brain health and memory fitness is our topic today, so let's get connected. My guest today is neuro-scientist and brain health expert Mark Underwood. First of all, thank you, Mark, for joining us today on Weekend Connection.
It's my pleasure, Stephen.
As we get into this brain health and the senior moments that we seem to experience as we grow older, what is America's state of brain health?
Well, as Americans, we're all getting a little older, and as we grow older, that is actually the most significant contribution towards memory loss. So with the graying of our society, we start to see more memory issues pop up in our daily life. Losing our car keys, our cell phones, those are just sort of real basic examples, but you can see how if your brain's having a hard time with those things, you might be having troubles with work, you might have a hard time with your family responsibilities and so forth. So
Right.
It's a real expensive problem to lose your memory or to lose part of your memory. It becomes very embarrassing, and it can become quite unproductive.
Mark, as we get into the nuts and bolts of the booklet, The Brain Health Guide, you mentioned some of the 5 tips for memory fitness, and I thought we would go through these one at a time and review these important tips. And you start off with new hobbies. In other words, change your routine. So the old adage, you can't teach an old dog new tricks, doesn't have to be true then.
That's right. New hobbies can really help stimulate the brain. For one, it allows learning and exercising the brain to be enjoyable. A lot of people, view brain exercise as a chore, but you could, take up model railroading and find ways to really stimulate your brain in a new way that you probably are not handling or taking care of in your 9-to-5 job. You want to be able to mix things up. So the world is your oyster. You can do many different things, but what you want to do is find something that's fun and exciting, and you will be challenging your brain, and you won't even realize it's a chore. Not at all. It'll be fun.
And of course, this leads to physical exercise, and what immediately comes to my mind is golf and gardening. But I've known people who, after retirement, all they desire to do is sleep in late, go to bed early, and just read books and magazines when they are awake. My guess is that's not a healthy lifestyle for the older population.
Well, physical exercise is very beneficial for the brain. And at any age, we can see improvements in how the brain processes information by exerting ourselves physically. There's been a lot of studies that have been done on this. It really doesn't seem to matter what sport or what activity you choose, walking, running, biking, tennis, golf, you name it. By stimulating the brain and the muscles to be invigorated, you'll start to see the brain respond. Literally, you can make your brain larger by doing physical exercise. All the different factors that go and circulate in your bloodstream after a good workout also go in and circulate throughout your brain, stimulating its response to grow and to work better. So we don't have to train for a triathlon. We don't have to be a mega endurance athlete. Just 3 or 4 times a week, 30 to 45 minutes session, and that's enough exercise to get the blood pumping and to start really encouraging your brain's development. So it's real easy to start, and research shows that it's one of the best things that you can do for memory out of all the different contraptions, thoughts, pills, potions, etc., that have been concocted. There's not much better than good old exercise.
And of course, you have to have that mental fitness, challenging your mind. We've all heard the phrase, use it or lose it. And I guess that is true for the brain and for memory. Or what are some of the proven memory tricks, Mark?
Well, when you look at mental fitness, you want to cross-train your brain. That's the key. It sort of goes back to what we talked about with hobbies. You want to mix up and diversify your intellectual experience on a daily basis. So let's say you're an accountant, and you go to work and you work with numbers all day. Well, in order to get cognitive fitness, you don't want to just come home at night and balance a checkbook. That's not going to really diversify what your brain's been doing all day long.
Right.
But you might want to pick up a puzzle. You might want to go to an art museum. You might want to try to learn how to juggle. Or mental fitness means that you're incorporating other techniques into stimulating your brain. So that could be a crossword puzzle. That could be an online game. That could be a number of different things. It could go back and it could be a new hobby. But you want to exercise that brain, use different aptitudes of your brain so that you can cross-train it, and you'll end up making the entire brain stronger for that effort.
This is Weekend Connection on the Bible Broadcasting Network, and my guest today is neuroscientist and brain health expert Mark Underwood. With his gift of making scientific complexities of the brain simple to understand, Mark has informed and entertained listeners across the spectrum on the nation's top talk radio shows. We're talking about the 5 tips for memory fitness, and number 4 has to do with social interaction. Engage. But Mark, this can become difficult as one slows down, grows older, or becomes a shut-in, and it's easy to forget those who have become isolated, in other words, out of sight, out of mind. But let's talk about this matter of engagement.
Sure. It's one of the most important things that we do. The interpersonal relationships we have are some of the most stimulating activities we can do as it results in better brain health. So we might, if we're able-minded, we might have to be considering those that are struggling in this area so that we can encourage their social interaction. If you become older and if you become more socially isolated, your memory issues will actually accelerate in a negative fashion. You need to encourage people that you might know in your life that are in this situation to get back out and become more socially interactive. In fact, go over to their house and invite yourself over for dinner. I mean, you have to really encourage their interaction, because when a human being becomes isolated, they can have a lot more acceleration of nearly every health issue they have, but memory loss in particular.
Yeah.
Go find your parents, spend time with them. Find your grandparents, spend time with them. Find your older relatives, spend time with them. Have dinner, hang out like the holidays, go on a picnic. These types of social interactions are very stimulating for both you and for them. And there's a lot of research that shows that people that are involved in more social interactions have a lower chance for things like dementia. And that's both for both parties involved in the social interaction. This is a way that you're cross-training your brain. It's also of benefit because if it's a close personal family member or a close friend, you already have an emotional connection with that person.
Right.
And the memories that are tied together with emotional relationships are much stronger. They're much more valuable than just a casual interaction with a stranger. Literally, if you think of the web of the mind like a spider web, and every memory is sort of like a strand in that web, the emotional memories that we have are much thicker strands, much thicker fibers, and they will last longer. So the time spent with a loved one is actually much more significant than time spent with sort of a stranger. Both can be stimulating, but for better memory, the social interactions in family groups are very, very important.
My guest today is neuroscientist and brain health expert Mark Underwood, and we're talking about the Brain Health Guide and some tips for memory fitness. And, of course, part of this has to do with proper diet and nutrition and supplements. What are some of these smart foods or foods and supplements that will help us in our memory fitness?
Well, first I'm going to tell you what to get rid of. Then we'll talk about how to replace it. So the first thing you want to minimize is sugars and saturated fats. Both of those cause inflammation inside the brain, and too much of either of those will cause the brain to literally slow down. It's like putting a construction zone on a busy highway. All the traffic gets slowed down because of the inflammation or because of the construction. So when you can cut out a lot of the sugar and saturated fats out of your diet, you will actually see a boost in your brain's performance overnight, because you will not be driving through a construction zone anymore. You'll be able to think clearly. All those messages in your brain won't have to get rerouted to the left and to the right. You'll be able to think about something. It'll come to you quickly, certainly much more quickly than before. So those are the first two things I would eliminate from the diet. Now, what do you replace it with? Yes, your brain certainly needs sugar, but you need to get it from better sources. Get it from things like fruits. When sugar is delivered in the form of fruit, it comes with a lot of fiber. That means that the brain is experiencing sugar that is released more slowly into the bloodstream and throughout the body. When you eat a donut, that does not happen. When you drink a soda pop, that does not happen. You take the full hit of the sugar nearly immediately, and that will cause the inflammation to start nearly immediately. And you can look at all the research, and there's a ton of overlap between diabetes and memory issues. That's very well known. So when you can make some changes, you want to put real sugar into your diet from things like fruits, vegetables, slower release, things with a lower value if you're looking at a glycemic index, and that's going to really help your brain work better.
My guest today on Weekend Connection is neuroscientist and brain health expert Mark Underwood. And Mark, you also mentioned in the Brain Health Guide that one must ensure a good night's sleep, but is that not the most difficult goal to achieve for the aging population?
Well, I think a lot of people are challenged by that, but if you eat healthy, you cut down the sugar, and you get good exercise, you're going to find yourself more tired at night. You're going to find yourself more able to rest because you've made yourself a little healthier during the day.
Uh-huh.
You have to be disciplined. The old adage, early to bed, early to rise, makes a man healthy, wealthy, and wise.
Right.
That's pretty good stuff. Turn off the TV, put away the phone, turn off the laptop, let your eyes go to sleep in a dark environment. If you stay staring at a screen into the wee hours of the morning, you say, well, I don't get sleepy. It's because you're staring at a brightly lit screen. Your body is not signaled to turn off. You need to avoid the light, close your eyes. That allows melatonin to be released from the pineal gland. That allows your body to go into its natural sleep state. And if you are staring at a bright light in some form like that, your body's never going to release that melatonin. You're never going to fall asleep, except for after sheer exhaustion, and then your sleep's not going to be of very high quality. So that's my best tip for better sleep, is to get away from the bright light, get away from the stimulation of the television, the little iPhone screen, or whatever you might be staring at.
You also mentioned saying no to stress, or what are some stress signals?
Well, stress certainly surrounds us every day. And the best brain health tip would be quit your job and take a permanent vacation. But I realize that's not very practical. But if you can deal with stress better, you're going to be able to sleep better at night. Your brain's going to work a lot better. Take short mental breaks throughout the day. I find that prayer works very well for people to help deal with stress. Exercise can help people deal with stress. Learning how to handle situations so that you're not making stress for yourself in your life or your workplace, that's great too. That's really hard to avoid, though. So as much as you can avoid it, do so. As much as you can handle it in a healthy manner, do so. The worst thing that happens, someone gets stressed, they start to feed their emotions. The next thing you know, they're sucking down a Coke, they're eating a half a bag of donuts, and they're trying to figure out why they don't feel well, and that's making them stressed. I'm sorry, I don't mean to make light of any of these issues. They're very hard to deal with, but I can tell you, the good news is if you make those discipline changes, you'll start to feel better. Your choices that you make about your diet and exercise, you'll start to feel better, and it'll be very positively reinforcing when all of a sudden your brain's working again. And you can say, wow, what that guy said, he knows what he's talking about. I started to implement those things, and I could start to see a change.
My guest again today has been neuroscientist and brain health expert Mark Underwood. Mark, thank you for joining us today on Weekend Connection and spending some time with us as we explore brain health and maybe getting rid of those senior moments. My pleasure. Have a great day.
Thank you for listening to this feature, a production of BBN, the Bible Broadcasting Network. BBN provides 24-hour Christian programming, great Christian music, and Bible teaching. Listen to BBN by clicking the link in the description.